I have really enjoyed my time with Diablo 4's Vessel of Hatred, and I'm likely going to continue making build guides for Diablo 4. However, the Necromancer as a class is dead. The defining feature of what makes a Necromancer is minions. And as you all know, we gotta sacrifice our minions for 25% resist all. We gotta sacrifice our mages for 20% damage. And this Iron Golem, which would be fun as hell to use, yeah, we gotta sacrifice him for 35% damage. What's left is not a Necromancer. This is fun to play, but it's not a Necro. There's no minions. What this is just a Goth Sorceress. Or in my case, a basket of fruit. If you actually want to have good Necromancer gameplay, you have to leave Diablo. Because Blizzard is not listening to community feedback, and they're not going to change. And in this time that we were all struggling to find iron chunks for our tempering and rawhide, I went and looked at our competition, and oh boy, Path of Exile 2 is looking crazy good for minion gameplay. So I'm coming out with a video in a couple days that is taking Diablo 4 and adding the patch notes required to make their minions as good as Path of Exile 2. So I made all these fake patch notes about, making Diablo get to where Path of Exile is, like not bifurcating damage between minions and players and how that's going to make things better. But for you to understand how good it's going to be in Path of Exile 2, we got to look at their witch gameplay. This trailer is insane, and I'm going to explain what I found in it and why it's so good. So I'm going to be pausing this video and talking about how this differs from Diablo's design and what they could learn.
I'm certainly not supposed to be here. How exciting.
I love my Necromancer lady, but I will settle for this voice actress. She's a 10.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers, Game Director on Path of Exile 2, and I'm here today to talk about the Witch.
The Witch is their Necromancer.
Most classes have access to some kind of minion, but if you want to control an army, the Witch is probably the class you want to pick. In PoE 2, most minions don't require summoning manually. This scepter gives me a couple of free warriors, but it's also going to give me another resource called Spirit, which you can spend on whatever minions you want. You can see the Spirit bar above the mana here. On the skill screen, you can pick the composition of your army. This is a level 2 area, so I can only afford one other minion. I'll pick a sniper for now.
You can stay in the back with me.
Alright, so I want to pause and look back at this real quick. If we go to the scepter, I want to talk about their itemization and how late game the scaling on the Witch is going to be way better than it is on the Necromancer in Diablo 4. First of all, the thing that gives us more ability to summon additional monsters and minions is Spirit. And as you can see, Spirit is just an implicit on scepters. So late game, the better the scepter, the more Spirit we're going to get. And then the explicits on this are granting ranks of a skill level. So granting 2 ranks gives you 2 skeletal warrior minions. But notice there's nothing here that says this is a witch-specific item. That's because in Path of Exile, there are no really hard-to-find classes. So if I was playing some kind of warrior character and picked up this scepter, I would also get 2 skeletal warrior minions. You can get gear from other classes, and everything plays nice. So let's say if this was in Diablo turns, this scepter happened to say, add 2 ranks of, the Druid's Companion. If I were to equip that on my Necromancer, kind of like using the rune words that summon the wolves, in Diablo, everything is broken about that interaction because they have really terrible spaghetti code. So if I summon wolves from using the rune word in Diablo 4, the wolves don't apply as minions for Kalin's Edicts. They don't apply as minions for Requiem. They completely break all interactions with Ring of Mindalin and make the item stop working. But in Path of Exile 2, if we grab a summon from a different class, it's just going to work with all of our buffs. This is great. And they have years of proven track record having their interactions work. Versus Blizzard, which, just started adding the ability to mix and match abilities from different classes, and everything is broken. Let's get back to where we were.
When minions die, they'll be revived automatically so long as no other minion has died recently. So before your next battle, all your minions will come back to life.
So basically, built into the class is the Ring of the Sacrilegious Soul, something that Necromancer players have been desperately asking for some way of having in the game. The Ring of Sacrilegious Soul is unusable at late game in Diablo because you give up a 45% damage modifier. You basically give up half your damage just to get this quality of life that should be built into the class.
You can also order your minions around with a dedicated button. Tell them to move to a specific location, attack a specific enemy, or even open a chest or door for you.
So they can open doors, chests, and hopefully loot for you, which is great.
Open that.
And you have a directed attack button.
We also have temporary minions. This spell is called
I think I skipped something. Did I skip it?
Unearth. If it kills a monster or if it hits the corpse of a monster, it creates these bone constructs. They can't take many hits and have a limited lifetime, but you can build up a real army with these.
So, this is something that's very interesting about their usage of corpses. They have a skill that this cone AoE that is doing damage, and if it happens to interact with a corpse, it does basically raise dead. So, you're spamming a damage ability rather than spamming, raise dead, hoping your hewed flesh has procced enough corpses. And if those corpses are there, something good happens. And if it doesn't, you're still doing something with your cast animation. You're not sitting there spamming the ground with, trying to cast corpse tendrils on a corpse that isn't there because it's already despawned across the screen due to your friend killing something in a horde.
While my minions are attacking, I'm going to use some debuffs on the monsters too. The first one I'm going to use here is Contagion. If a monster dies with Contagion, it spreads to nearby enemies. Each time it spreads, the damage increases, so it's a good idea to try and keep the infection going.
Basically better dots than we have in Diablo 4.
If any corpses are infected when you summon a minion from them, the minion will be infected as well. Each time they hit an enemy, they'll continue infecting them.
So now we have combos with corpses where you don't just have corpses as a resource. If the corpse is infected, it now does something different.
It's nice to have an army of infected scorpions on your side. I also have another chaos debuff called Essence Drain. This one does even more single target degen. If the monster is infected with Contagion at the same time, then the Essence Drain will spread as well.
If you've played World of Warcraft, this is basically a death knight where you put multiple diseases on a target and then you can spread them.
This can turn into a real plague of destruction. Another minion type I can summon are zombies, but they require a corpse.
These will do nicely.
They don't require
They don't come back to life if they die,
always.
but they're fairly tough and can
We'll see that
bolster your
later.
minion numbers. Many minions also have command skills. I can order my sniper to deploy a gas arrow on the battlefield to get some damage over time.
That is where there's a massive difference between Diablo and Path of Exile. The skills on their bar, these down here, are going to be scaling with pluses to minion damage. So it doesn't matter if you're buffing minion damage or player damage. The skills on your bar are going to play nice with all of your multipliers. Because if, let's say I have plus 1,000% minion damage, if the skill I'm manually casting benefits from that, I don't care if it's, my damage or my minion's damage. But the only way to achieve this parity in Diablo would be to remove the minion-specific damage and just make Callan's Edict like you gain the damage. But because they get to put minion skills on their active bar, it doesn't matter. And there's a lot of minion skills. There's another one shown in a moment.
Now I'm going to summon a skeletal arsonist. They can throw little fire grenades, but they also have a command skill that can detonate your own minions that are low on life.
Everyone loves that ability to blow up minions. Especially when they just resummon after 3
When
seconds.
you see the red indicator, use the skill and the minion will go boom. It's particularly nice on these bone constructs because they expire quickly anyway.
That's one.
So, let's take all these tools we found and fight the boss of this area, the Carrion Crone.
Every boss in Path of Exile 2 has been intense.
So, that's how many minions you can get at level 2. But let's see what minion gameplay looks like at a higher level. This is a level 30 area. I want to try a different group of minions. I still have my trusty warriors, but there's a lot of different types to choose from, like brutes for stunning or ice mages for freezing, and most of them come with their own special abilities or command skills. For now, I'd like a couple of storm mages to shock enemies, a cleric to heal and revive my minions, and a bunch of reavers as well.
So imagine if we in Diablo could select which minions we have based off our ranks of raised skeleton. So if you had 28 ranks of raised skeleton, you could choose to spend, a point each on a warrior, 2 points on a mage, and then 10 points on a golem. So maybe you want to run around with 2 golems. Okay, go ahead.
Heal and revive my minions, and a bunch of reavers as well. Reavers do high damage, and you can also enrage them before battle. This slowly kills them, but my cleric should be able to keep them alive. While my minions are attacking, I can use channeled skills like Bone Storm, which creates a devastating volley of sharp spikes. The Storm Mage has a useful ability if lots of your minions die. He can summon a lightning storm to strike the location of every dead skeleton in your army. Just like that. We also have a type of skill called Offerings. These let you impale one of your skeletons on a big spike of bone in order to buff all of your other minions.
This is the one ability I don't like, because it's just raised the Skeletal Priest from Diablo 4. This is a boring mechanic.
The one I've just used here is called Pain Offering. It makes all of my other minions faster and deal more damage.
It does look cooler though.
After the battle, we have some extra corpses. We don't want those to go to waste. Profane Ritual consumes a corpse to create a power charge, which can power up some of my other spells.
These are the power charges rotating around him, so he currently has 3 power charges. Those count as corpses that he's carrying with him.
If I use them to summon zombies, I can create super zombies, which are more powerful. You also don't need a corpse to summon them.
So the zombies that previously needed a corpse now don't, because he consumed power charges instead.
I can also use power charges to channel Bone Storm. If I do that, it adds a devastating AoE.
This makes the corpse economy better.
Die!
Notice this big bone prison summoned by the enemy? It's going to come up later.
In PoE 2, even non-boss monsters can be pretty devastating, like this Faradin Impaler. There's a wide variety of abilities and is pretty tough to defeat.
It also just used this shockwave ability. That's also going to come up later.
But maybe I can put the body to a better use. This is a Bind Spectre gem. Using it, I can take the body of any enemy and capture its spirit so that I can keep it as a minion. Any monster can be captured, but the spirit cost depends on how powerful the monster is. It takes a lot of spirit for such a powerful enemy, so I'll have to unsummon a lot of my other minions, but it certainly seems like it might be worth it.
Now he's gone full Pokemon trainer and captured
If the
soul of
Spectre
this
dies, just like any
Spectre.
other minion, it will respawn after a short time.
See that bone prison that minion used against him? Now that it's his Pokemon, he's used that bone prison. So every minion, enemy's ability, if you see a cool ability, you can capture it with the Pokeball. I mean, a Bind Scepter gem, whatever. That's amazing. And it's not just some dumb, there's the Shockwave ability. It's not just some dumb bag of health and attack. it actually uses the abilities. It's awesome. And for
So,
the
I think it's time to fight
crazy
the boss of
combos.
this area, Tor Gull the Defiler.
You are related.
During this boss fight, I want you to look at this guy's cursor. I'm going to highlight it as it goes. Because this game is focused on WASD, we don't have to constantly click left, right, left, right, left, right, and we can be much more accurate with our skill casts. In Diablo 4, starting around Season 3, maybe Season 4, they added the ability to use WASD to move. And in all of my videos, 90% of the movement I do is with WASD. It is a better system. And
Endless. But that makes you predictable.
it doesn't sound like it, but it's amazing. And I'll show you a couple things I'm going to point out in this fight of why. His cursor is remaining on the boss while he's moving to dodge abilities. So he's a lot more accurate and it's much more chill. You can see his minions in the top left here. So that big AoE just deleted a bunch of his mobs. He's down to one mob. And now they're all back up. So all 9 of his minions came up in one frame. Now they're all dead. This little counter's going down. And now they're all back up. It's like 3 to 5 seconds. Bam, all your minions. They're all dead again. And they're all back. 5 seconds. He's been able to keep his cursor on the boss mob this entire time while moving with WASD. One other thing about the movement is about to come up. Here. So in Diablo, you have these large circles that you have to spend a long time running around during in-game tormented bosses. This is because they expect you to have a lot of move speed, and to make it interesting, to make it something you actually have to move out of, you have to make you move a lot of distance just to get out of the fire and make the fight interesting. In Path of Exile, just this little area around this character becomes much more interesting, because when you go to cast, you slow down, but you don't stop moving. Therefore, you can have things be half the radius of AoE and move half as far and get the same amount of interesting gameplay. So he's just moving very slightly to get out of these fires. And that would be the equivalent of moving like literally across an entire screen in Diablo. It allows for so much more interesting technical use of space that we can't get in Diablo. This is amazing. And it's going to make in-game bosses so much more interesting than they're capable of being in Diablo 4.
None will stand in my way.
So Path of Exile 2 is coming into early access on November 15th. If you're on the fence about paying for early access, the full game will be free, and I suggest you wait for content creators like myself to come and make content. I'm going to be making a series focused on helping necromancers from Diablo wrap their heads around all of the crazy systems in Path of Exile. Path of Exile 1 was not very approachable, and I only played the game at in-game for 2 months before I ran into issues. So assuming those issues don't exist in Path of Exile 2, this will just be a better game than Diablo. And I do not believe Diablo's devs are going to listen enough to changes that are going to need to be made to make their game better. I'm going to be making fake patch notes, as I've said, to make Diablo better. Like making Raised Skeleton a core and Bone skill, and how that changes this entire paradigm. This video is going to be coming in, 2 or 3 days. It's going to be great. And it's going to be kind of a humorous tone. So Keep watching. I hope you liked this video. I hope you like this kind of content. And I'm going to be continuing to make Diablo content because I really enjoy the game. But I expect if Path of Exile lives up to this video, that this is going to be my main game that I'm going to be playing and making content for moving forward. Have a great day and keep having fun.